And we are live. So welcome to the Chronic Comeback podcast. My guest today is Danny McMillan. And so before we get into the podcast itself, I just want to give you guys some context as to how I came across Danny and his story. So over the last 18 months now, I've been doing my best to navigate the world of online selling, trying to build a business with my business partner on Amazon and other platforms like Shopify. And it was actually when you know going through this period of learning, one of the main sources of learning are podcasts, and what the podcast in the space is Danny's Seller Sessions, where he has experts on the show and actually looks at the mindset of it all and everything. So, you know, I'm a religious listener. Alongside being a big online seller himself and running 3 successful businesses, Danny has built a massive community in this space. And through his podcast, and through lockdown, actually recorded almost 100 consecutive episodes, which is pretty crazy.
Actually, it was sorry to break you there. It was 77 right in a row, but yeah, we've done over 100 now. But yeah, we do. I just like that for context, you know.
You could have got away with it there.
I could have just stole the whole thing out, but then it wouldn't have been true, and then I would get trolled for it. So
fair
I'd rather it be, you know.
Fair enough. Well, 77 is still impressive, but it was on a show in lockdown, and I sent you a voice note actually after I listened to it, and you casually mentioned that you'd been dealing with Lyme, mold, SIBO, amongst other things. And I was like, wow, if you're dealing with that shit and you're doing, you know, all of the stuff that you're doing, then I can go and do something similar. And I think you said something similar about someone else you were speaking to who was doing crazy things and dealing with.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've got someone who does nearly 100 million. I'm nowhere near him. And yeah. I'm like, if he hasn't got a fucking excuse, nor should I. And that was really good for me in that sense, because I didn't want to throw a pity party for myself. Yeah. And I know I do a lot of things and I work around it. But when someone is doing that well and he works the mechanics of going, he just shows me a way forward, right? It's like, if he can do that and 10x me, do you know, he's just, or more, it's incredible what this guy's achieved. So I'm like, that gave me the inspiration as well.
Absolutely. And so, you know, that was a big reason. I was already in the process of starting this podcast, and I immediately just thought I need to get Danny on if he'll come on, and thank you so much for coming on. So I think what's important is to go back before you had any sort of anything with Lyme, mold, before that point. Were you completely healthy? What was life like then? And could you give us some time frames on it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't say healthy, because when I was younger, I used to smoke cigarettes and used to go to raves and party and all that kind of stuff. So all that stuff built up. But I think a defining thing for me is that I was on a life support machine. I had half a ton of plasterboard collapse on me, and I had 80 stitches across my gut. And so that's not going to help either. But I think if we look to where the symptoms started, it started when I was working from home and sitting on my bed on my laptop and you know, trying to build the businesses and stuff. And that I was getting fatigued and tired all the time, you know, and I was trying to go out running and trying all these different things. And it started, I think, roughly around 2013. And it was really bad in 15, 16, 17, slightly better in 18, as we'll get into the story. And a lot better now because you're managing it. But yeah, I mean, overall, I'd never say I was the healthiest person, because I was a DJ. You're jet lagged, you're flying around the world, and you're partying, you're drinking, you know, all of those things. And I'm talking about every day. You know, there are people out there who'll be partying 7 days a week. That's not my style. I like to go out, enjoy myself, and then have a long break. And I call a long break maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, or whatever it may be. But it's intermittently that it's done. So yeah, I wouldn't say I'm super healthy. I haven't lived this like vegan, super clean lifestyle with no alcohol. Does that make sense? It depends how you define it. But no, I'm not the guy that drinks 3-4 times a week or more and always in the pub all the time. Do you know what I mean? I'm not that kind of, that end of the spectrum.
So when was there like a defining point where you were like, did it just suddenly start to build up? Because for me, it was like over the space of a short period of time, everything got really bad at once. Did that happen for you, or was it a real gradual
No,
thing?
mine was a build, like, and because you can't put your finger on it, and I can't remember what year it was, but I knew, like, I got to the stage where I was really into Tim Ferriss's The 4 Hour Body, learned a lot of stuff from there.
Yeah.
And then I was on, like I think he called it the slow carb diet.
Right.
And then you'd have a cheat day at the weekend, then you're exercising, but I was still getting fatigue. And there was times where you go and do runs and and then you want to sleep for the rest of the day. And it's just, so you're thinking that exercise is going to help. It doesn't. And then it wasn't until I upgraded from slow carb and going into keto. And keto was like, fuck, the lights just come on. As soon as you hit ketosis for the first time, it's like someone's just given me the red pill, or it's phenomenal. It's like the lights come on. There's a new dimension added. The energy is outrageous that you get. And you get excited because you're like, oh, I'm not tired anymore. This is incredible. But you end up pushing the needle because you're doing keto. And then you're getting up in the morning, you've got like 4 eggs and you've got melted cheese and you're cooking out coconut oil and just like, over a period of time, when I'd come out of keto and go back in, I started to get like brain fog, and it like got really, really heavy for a point. So then I came out of keto. I think it's about 15 or 16. And then I went to see all these different specialists, NHS, fucking useless. I loved them they helped me because they saved my life. I was on a life support machine, right? Yeah. But like, unless you got broken bones or you need some sort of hip replacement or something like that, that's fine. But when it comes to sorting out the problem of the gut, it's like, there you go, Buscapin, get on with it. There isn't any in between. There is no, there's not enough time for a diagnosis of it. Because they just put everything under a broad stroke, and there's no separation. They don't talk about SIBO. They don't talk about Lyme. They don't talk about mold. They don't talk about all these things. No one's trained for it. And then they think the people that you speak to that are trained doctors but have been in their university, college, education, whatever it is, they'd left 8 years ago. And the thing is, they've got knowledge from 8 years ago, not now. And the gut and the brain, like, sometimes you'll speak to doctors, and not that you can't play Dr. Google, but you feel like you know more about it than them. And they become institutionalized. They're like, take this tablet, relieve the symptoms. I'm like, I don't want to relieve the fucking symptoms. I didn't say it like that, but I don't want to relieve the symptoms. I want to know what the cause is, deal with the cause, and then we can go from there. And then because it's NHS, of course, you're going to wait months and months and months, and then you go to the private ones. And I've spent tens of thousands on this. I know Ash, my friend, done the same thing. And then you end up with buddies who's dealing with the same thing, but no one gets it, right? Because everyone goes, oh, it's just in your head. Well, of course it's in your head. You've got fucking brain fog and you can't work and stuff. And so that becomes a frustration. Then because you've got the frustration of the unknown. You've got the frustration of waiting and going around these places. So you might get a test, wait 3 months. Well, if you've got brain fog for 3 months and you're trying to run multiple businesses and you can only operate a couple of hours a day, like, you're rushing to get as much work done as possible before the brain fog kicks in, and then your day's gone. It's cooked. You can't forward progress because you don't want to take on anything else that's new. You're just operating in a complete maintenance mode. And no matter how much you spend, each of these people had their own way of diagnosing stuff, right? I've heard ozone therapy. I've had all sorts of stool tests, urine tests. Ozone's the fucking worst though, mate, when they insert that into you and you're laying on your back, you're in agony. It's just like, and you go through things and you're just like, Jesus Christ. But you have this determination to get to the other end. But what it comes down to is that you have all these situations where you're reading up stuff, you test that test takes a week, right? Doesn't work. You try something else. And when you've relieved the brain fog and you think, yes, we got it. And it comes back the next day. Because that thing that you tried only works for, I've tried everything from smart drugs. I've tried Wim Hof breathing. I've tried all of these different things. And it just comes down to a handful of things that have helped recently, but it don't mean it won't come back.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So it becomes to a many. Anyway, I got on a rant there. It was
No, it's good. It's good. I think you know that's representative of how people feel, and I'm just there nodding my head because it's just so similar to to what I've been through. I guess just dialing it back, like what were the main symptoms? I know you mentioned brain fog a lot. Is it mainly brain fog? Are there other symptoms?
Yeah. So the main was brain fog and the fatigue, which is, it goes hand in hand. So you imagine like you'd wake up in the morning, you'd feel all right. And then you start working and you're okay. And then you feel like in your head, like a form of like a fuzzy feeling. Yeah. And you can't concentrate and your eyes go and you're looking at the screen and you can't think and you just, and then it gradually builds and then you lay down. Yeah. And that's it. That's your day over until the brain fog clears. And that was an everyday occurrence for me for a long, long time until I took a stand and I said, fuck this. If I have to sell my house and sell everything, because the way I see it, right? If I've got to where I've got to now, I have the knowledge to get here, which means next time round I can get here again probably and a lot faster. So I come to the conclusion is I'm going to throw the kitchen sink at it and I'm going to resolve it. I'm not going to cut corners. I'm not going to go, oh, their test's too expensive. It's like throw money at it to stop this shit. That was it. I mean, and that turning point was, I think it was 2000, towards the end of 2017. One day my gut was burning and I'm laying in bed and it's absolutely on fire. And then I run to the toilet because I'm feeling sick now to go and throw up. So I've run to the toilet, gone in there. I think I'd already puked on myself. Sorry, being graphic, threw up on me. But it's important to know that to go through. And then I was sick and then it was like green in the bucket. Run to the toilet to go to the toilet. Passed out, hit the floor, split my face open. Cheryl come and grabbed me, helped me back to the bedroom. We call an ambulance. Ambulance crew, on the phone. Has he got this? Has he got that? And when you're in that kind of zone, and it's like, keep asking me questions, and I'm like, it was so bad. I was in so much pain. Has he got this? Did he do this? And I was like, I'm saying it's wrong, but I went, tell them just to send the fucking ambulance, like that. And it turned up 2 hours later, because obviously you don't say that and expect the ambulance to turn up, do you? But I was in so much pain. It was unbelievable amount of pain. I can't even get into. It's like, if I call it like a thunderbolt of light pain, where you can barely breathe and you feel you're going to pass out through the level of pain at any time. It was like, I imagine, I've never been tortured, but I imagine if someone wanted to torture you, if you do that to someone, that would definitely work on their threshold of pain, because it was horrific. Then they come up, and this is the irony of it, right? They then take me out to the ambulance and they give me an injection. And they say, and to, like for anti-sickness, right? Take some of the pain and then reduce the anti-sickness. Fucking cheeky bastards turned around and said to me, what drugs have you taken? I went, you what? He went, what drugs have you had? I went, I haven't had any fucking drugs. Are you sure? And I look, mate, listen, I haven't had any fucking drugs. I said, I might used to party in my early years, but I don't touch drugs. And so it's like, oh, okay. And then they took me to the hospital. I had a brain scan. I then checked myself out, and then I got a cab home. Arrived home about 7 o'clock in the morning and rested. And from that day, I said, that's it. I don't care what it takes. I'm not living like this. This isn't a life. You can't live like that, because it takes away the quality of living. I've never thought about it in a suicidal sentiment or anything like that. That's never ever crossed my mind in any reason. But I knew I can't live a life like that. And so I decided from that day on, I need to go and find a consultant in the US. So my first consultant was John Brisson. He wrote a book that was on Amazon. I watched some of his YouTube content, very technical, lovely man. Heal Your Gut, I think the book was called. There was also a PDF version. So started with him, and it literally was like an experiment lab. I said, John, you just tell me what we need to get. So pay these fees, and then it was like, we'll sit there, we're going to try this, we're going to try that supplement, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, I'm going to run this test. And it was just like, you're a guinea pig. And I didn't care. I just wanted to get a resolution of some kind. I mean, the bit I skipped out in the bit was the London one, where I spent a year doing ozone treatments and all sorts.
Well, that's actually just what I wanted to kind of go back to, because I think a lot of people listening to this right now will be in their darkest places. And I think for me, that came about through, feeling there was something wrong with me, going to the doctor where I'd been told I was always going to get fixed, and them just making me feel like there was nothing wrong with me. And the amount of times I would go to the doctors then feel really awkward when I was talking, because I could see the look in their eye. And it was just, they were never, there was never a resolution. So did you have that period of time where you didn't know what was going on? Because you mentioned you were on keto.
Yeah.
But like, had you had a diagnosis? And I don't want to say diagnosis, because God, it doesn't even really do anything.
No, I mean, you get all these gut tests, and that this is a bit higher, that's a bit higher, this is a bit higher. But really, I think the breakthrough came this year, because I felt I exhausted everything. Like, I give people a long time, and I felt we've exhausted everything with John, who's a brilliant guy. I recommend him, honestly. Brilliant guy, lovely man as well. But I felt, like you've done a year and you hadn't come to that point. So
was that with Lyme as well? Because when did you come to the point where you thought?
Well, it was SIBO with John. It was more the diagnosis went towards SIBO because of what was going on there, and some of the testing at the time suggested that as well. And then in January, I changed consultants, and I spent about £4,000 there. So I had like broad spectrum of tests, like more, we just went all in. Broad spectrum of tests, come $3 or $4 grand, can't remember exactly. I mean, what one of the things I choked on was that we'd done that in January, done all the tests. We had COVID in March. Supplements cost me $1,400. And then the sickener was when you got the what's it called, the custom charges, 352 quid custom charges. It's like, Jesus Christ, it doesn't add anything on top. And I know the cost of supplements anyway, because I've got friends and clients in the supplement businesses, so you're paying like 50 quid for a supplement, cost $1-2 to make. And then once you add on all the charges, but what came back from that is that one of the tests I've got is I have very, very, very high levels of ochratoxin A. Ochratoxin A is found in livestock and also in mold. In the previous house I lived in, we had mold, and being in that bedroom, it was behind the wardrobe. You pulled the wardrobe out, and it was mold everywhere. And so I think being in that room 24/7, once I was working at home with a laptop on my lap for a number of years in that room, with only 2 feet behind a wall was just mold and the part of the ceiling. But because they were floor to ceiling wardrobes, you couldn't see them, and it didn't smell either. You get that smell of mold. And so elevated levels of ochratoxin A, that comes from my understanding, mold exposure. And I think what brought it back to the point is around this time I've switched to vegan, because you're trying everything. I've done fasting, I've done intermittent fasting, I've done everything you could possibly fucking think of. And so when it was like, okay, then I did a consult, a follow-up consult, and I said, look, none of these supplements are working. I'm still doing it. I'm eating a vegan diet. And he said, what you should try and do, he said, what's really good for me, and I have it, is cholestyramine. Now, cholestyramine, from my understanding, is used like an anti-sickness, like diarrhea. But what it also does, it works as a binder. So it pulls out the ochratoxin A and pulls it out into your stool, and you get to release it through there. Or it also, you know, if you have infrared, what they call saunas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so the only thing is that it has to be a prescription. So we've moved last year, about a year now. So I live in the country now with nature, you know, pretty good setup in terms of where we are location wise. I mean, I've done all the EMF things. I've earthed desks and all sorts, you know, $150 covers that look like just a bit of cloth that goes over your internet, meant to protect and reduce by 90%. I've done it all. I mean, I didn't care.
Have you had one of those earthing sheets?
Oh, I've done it all. Just everything, every fucking crackpot, crazy, quackery shit. I didn't care, because at the end of the day, I don't care if someone laughs at that. That's fine. If it stops the brain fog, I'll do literally anything within reason. But I'll do all the quackery shit to take it off the table, because you know you've tested. But here's the thing: cholestyramine. So that pulls it out of your body. I spoke to Ash. He said, Dan, you've got to come off vegan. He said, get back on the meats, but go and get grass-fed only. So now I have veg from the farm, organic veg, and I order my meat from Eversfield. And then every night, like these come in sachets. There's different versions of cholestyramine, but I had the commercial version through the doctors, which I'll get in the story in a moment. I didn't think I was going to get it. So I was literally taking half a teaspoon. You build up slow, you know, like people can just go in really quick.
Yeah.
And so for about a month or so, you're doing that, and that's pulling it out of your body. I've had about brain fog about twice since then.
Wow.
And that's in the last couple of months or so. So last few months have been really good. So I think the change in food made a difference, because livestock that eat the livestock at their feed, they actually know there's ochratoxin A issues with the feed and mold issues and stuff like that, because they use zeolite, they mix to the feed to try and offset that. And you have to be careful, because some people are grass fed in the summer and then they're given the feed in the winter, but that doesn't mean when you eat it that's still going to be healthy. So you end up becoming a lot more stricter with that. And when you cut out things like you cut out beer because of the way it's brewed, high levels of ochratoxin A, so you're very, very kind of careful with that. And the irony out of everything now, spending tens of thousands, it cost me £9 prescription, or £9.70 or whatever it is, for a box of 60 sachets, which I'll get through every 2 to 3 days.
Yeah.
But the interesting one was I'd never met my doctor before. It's COVID. And then I show him my report, because it's on my report with the high levels of ochratoxin A. It does mention everything. I sent all over the analysis. I gave him my reasoning as well. And I didn't think he was going to do it. I didn't think and he gave it to me. I would have gone on the black market. If someone said to me, Dan, £500, I'll give you a box of that, I would have bought it. Wouldn't have blinked.
Well, I haven't actually told you this, because we've had off the record conversations about mold. So we have completely different symptoms. We've got a completely different background. And yet I also, at some point this year, was like, right, I'm just going to spend about $3,000 or whatever it was. I went over to Germany with my doctor, got all these tests done, and I was tested for mold. And I thought, I just assumed I'd been tested for mold, just because I've been dealing with this for so long. I was like, I've definitely been tested for mold. And it turns out I hadn't. And it turns out I also have really high levels of ochratoxin A. And I'm now dealing with this. For anyone listening to this who hasn't tested your mold, test it. It's really important.
£270. I can't remember. Where did we get our tests? We went to the same place, didn't we?
Great Plains, yeah.
Great Plains, £270, probably the best bit of money spent. And I think that's a lot, because I'm finding, I said this to you, when you send the report, I said, look, same as me, high levels of ochratoxin A. I think a lot of people may have been exposed to mold or the food, which goes back to keto. I was on a dirty keto diet. I weren't eating grass-fed. I was
Yeah.
eating the shit out of Tesco's,
Yeah.
which is pumped with antibiotics and all sorts. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and well, God, I've done all those kinds of diets. So now I'm in a position where I've got this call with Neil Nathan, and if anyone hasn't read this book, it's called Toxic, and he's going to be reviewing my results. But anyway, he will also the big thing that he tells people to take is chlorostomine, and
Yeah.
so I've had a conversation with my doctor here. And I had last week, and they won't prescribe it. I did the exact same thing. I guilted them. I said, and she was like, "Look, my hands are tied. I can't do it." So they can't prescribe me the one thing that's going to get me well.
Yeah.
However, I've also done my research on the internet, and there is a way of getting it. So it's not, but it just goes to show the current system doesn't support people like us. The fact that we have to resort to those kind of things is crazy. So where, in terms of today, where you're at today, sounds like you're in a good spot. Like
apart from constantly swearing through your first podcast, which I hope I don't get you banned. No, I've got a potty mouth, but I think what I'm trying to get across is that whoever, if you're in your darkest hour, I think Winston Churchill says is you just keep walking. You just got to keep going. Do never, ever get up. Never let anyone tell you anything otherwise. There is a way out. And I'm not saying that I'm on my way out. I spent 5 years doing it. And I'm not saying you might be in a position to spend tens of thousands. I'm not saying that either. What I'm saying is whatever resources that you have, throw your resources at it and dial out the noise. Dial out what everyone says. If you know in your true self there's something going on, you owe it to yourself to get whatever you can get done. And hopefully this podcast will help some people, get through.
The one thing I wanted to move on to actually was mindset, and you do a podcast most weeks on mindset, which is brilliant. It's actually they're my favorite episodes. And one thing that you said, which I that was when I messaged you afterwards. You said a doctor had told you that you're probably just going to have to learn to live with this. And I'd had the exact same thing happen to me, and you were just like, "Fuck that." I'm not, and by the way, I swear as well, so it's fine. Fuck that. I'm not accepting that. And I think that's the mindset that even if you're, whatever anyone's got listening to this, there's always something that can be done that can better their situation,
improve their quality of life.
Exactly. You'll have people who have got really bad symptoms, but they're actually happier than other people, without symptoms. So would you say, mindset wise, was it really that kind of, that darkest hour before dawn, that, that time where you had to go to hospital, was that for you, that was the mindset switch?
Yeah. I mean, when you puke up green and then you smash your face and split your head open on the floor, you got to say, look, I can't go half in on this. I've got to go all the way. Because if I'd done that then and done nothing about it, where would I be today? Would we be having this conversation? What if I pass out in the road as I'm crossing the road? What if my symptoms got worse and it spreads somewhere else in your body and it actually becomes a different thing from the gut? It's the heart, it's the lungs, it's whatever it may be. I'm not a doctor or anything, but you have to think about all of these different things. And I think what happens is they hit their wall. That was my wall of determination. And, that's a few years ago. So if that's me a few years ago, and I'm only saying now, I don't know, like when we did Branded by Women, back, it was on the 31st of May, counting back. So March, April, I had 8 weeks of brain fog. And I had to deliver a summit in 7 or 8 weeks. Lucky I got a team, but it was a struggle every day to do that. So if I'm going back only that far, and I'm only kind of getting into cholestyramine now, and knowing from everything I've done in the past that works for a period of time and stops, this may not be over for me. This just might be a period where I don't have it. It could come back tomorrow. I could go for another 2 months with it. And then I'm back in that same saddle. So, it could be never ending. So all I'm doing is doing my best, relieve the symptoms, do this, try and avoid that. Test those things. Think about that. Doing this, you're constantly, I'm not in management mode of my health, because that becomes a thing, right? You have your day job, you have your private life, and then managing this. So managing this, for some people that are laying in bed, they're on their phone, may spend hours reading research papers, PubMed, all these different things to try and so at the moment, I don't feel like I'm managing my health. I'm looking after it, but I'm not managing it. And I think there are a lot of people out there who'll be listening will know what I mean by that. And I'm sure you're the same as well, because it's something that sits on either your conscience or your subconscious.
Well, I always have to have something to work towards. I can't be sitting there thinking this is how it is. And whether that's from a mental point of view or from a physical point of view. But I think for me, also, gratitude is something I wanted to have a chat to you about as well. I mean, there are certainly things for me that have come out of me doing this podcast right now. I'd be sitting in a job in the city if I hadn't have started to develop symptoms. Are there things that you can take from your situation that are positive and that would never have happened had you not have gotten, I don't like to say sick, but you know what I mean?
Do you know the biggest thing that's come out of it? I work on the businesses, not in them. So this forced me to design, what if I've got brain fog? How do I run these businesses? So I built teams. So now that has taught me about, like it's inadvertently getting me so that what any business owner should do, you get to cash flow, you employ people, you build it out, or business owner, entrepreneur is slightly different, right? Because you're always looking at creating new businesses. Some people will stay working in the same business for the rest of their life and they have a limited company, but that's their stretch. That's all they want to do. Whereas I want to create new things. I want to test new, I want to launch. I'm always in that mode. Want to build.
Yeah.
And so what it's taught me is that if I get brain fog, who's going to run these businesses? So when I build stuff now, it's who's going to run these businesses? What if I get brain fog? And that's the positive side effect of getting the brain fog. Whereas I might still only have like one business, maybe 1.5, 2, if you like, like you have little side things, rather than 3 that are fledged 6-figure businesses,
But you also strike me as someone who has gone down a bit of a spiritual journey as well. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, similar to me, you might not have been going down that path otherwise. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't have a great childhood. I was on a life support machine at 15. 2 of my children had died. Recovered my marriage. I lost $500,000, which took a project down. I've nearly been personally bankrupt. So you have to go on a spiritual journey to get through that stuff, which is one thing I'd like to address as well, is for people listening out there, do you have unprocessed trauma? Because physically, the demands on your body, right? So if someone has got to the stage where they block out pain from their childhood or whatever like that, they may process that physically. When they process it physically, what does that do to the symptoms? Does your body have equilibrium? Maybe it does, maybe it's not. Maybe these people that have been locked down in COVID, I've been very lucky. I'm not on the 15th floor. 3 kids, lift broken, stinks of piss, people walking up and down the stairs, mental health going to the shitter. People are going through that. We're living in a world now. You've only got to look at the social dilemma and stuff on Netflix, social media, everything that's breaking, like the kind of things what's going on in this world. How does that stuff affect you as well? Because you might be able to eat well. You may avoid doing certain things. You might do exercise, but do you have panic attacks? Do you have anxiety? Do you have all these different things? Because these are all going to have a weight, I believe, on your health as well. So some of your chronic health can be caused by trauma of some kind. So you need to think about emotional literacy and sovereignty. Do you have your house in order in that sense? Do you have great people around you? Do you have great relationships? Have you had to weed out people? So I think one thing that people miss off the list is their sovereignty. Do they have agency? Are they surrounded by the right people? and how do they process stress? So if you run 3 businesses, obviously it's going to be stressful, right? But how do you process that? Like, do you go and hit a bag at the end of the week in the gym, or do you go to the pub?
Mm.
How do you process that at the end? How do you unwind at the end of the long day? Do you go and have a glass of wine or a few beers, or do you go and put a bath on and put magnesium salts in there?
Mm.
They're the questions you've got to start to ask yourself as well. Is that with COVID going on, are you seeing enough of your family? I think that's the unquantifiable part that people don't look into.
Mm.
So I think if you are going through things like brain fog, I always knew brain fog isn't depression. Brain fog is the connection of the gut-brain axis. Brain fog is brain fog. That's when you're having a bad day. And knowing that the two are different and not making them one, I think was very important for me when I was going through brain fog to know I wasn't depressed, I had brain fog. But what else causes that brain fog?
Yeah. I think what you've said there as well is that you're working on, and again, going back to the positive stuff that can come out of being in this situation, you've worked on stuff outside of your physical symptoms, which means that one, you're better equipped to deal with what you're going through now, which is really important for anyone listening to this. But also, when you come on the other side of this, you're going to feel physically better, but you're going to be mentally a lot better as well. So you're actually going to be a better person on both sides of the equation than you were before. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, every day, get up, I meditate 2-3 times a day. Sometimes it's a long day for me because of as I understand it, right? Not a physician or anything. So your gut has its own kind of circadian rhythm. And if you've got a dysbiosis, an offset, then like for me, I woke up 4 a.m. without alarm for many years. Not every day, nearly every day, 4:18, 20 to 5, 10 to 4, most days, not all, but most days. And so that's a long day. And so I get up, I meditate, you do affirmations, gratitude, build a little playlist on YouTube, naps, get your naps in, do works in sprint, work, nap, retain as much energy as you can possible to make the best decisions possible. There is a thing out there called decision fatigue. You start off early, your decisions are known to get worse as they get throughout the day. So powering on through on coffee may blow your adrenals out of the water. So instead of that coffee, have a nap. And I think if you can make a list of what you are grateful for and turn them into affirmations, that will help your day better, because you can play the poor me card, the victim card. Yeah. And I don't want to upset the listeners out there by saying that. You're not a victim.
No,
trust me.
I think that's actually. I like. I don't think it's for everyone, but I like. And I use it with me. I like the tough love. You have to be kind to yourself, right? You can't beat yourself up because it's not your fault. But then there's also an element. I spent a long time waiting for my life to just get back going again, and I don't think you can wait around. And it is kind of like, you've said it a few times. Take a sip from the man the fuck up glass.
And you're right. It's not for everyone, but if that's what gets me through,
yes, exactly.
That works for me. If you need to listen to meditations by Sadhguru or someone like that, then do that. If you need to do yoga, do that.
Yeah.
Just find your switch. Find what works for you. I mean, I go through a series of books. I mean, I'm trying to get him on my show. It's a guy called David Goggins. He's run with broken legs and all sorts.
Yeah,
and he's fucking crazy. I love him, right?
Yeah.
You go on YouTube, type in David Goggins motivation, and he'll be running with his top off and he'll go, fuck people, be a beast, get up every day, and it's very Sergeant Major, right?
Yeah.
But some people will find that as a way to evoke them, right?
Yeah.
To kick them into action. Find your meaning and then work off of that. Don't listen to me. Find what works for you, but you're not a victim. But you can fall into it, because I did it. I got to the stage. Imagine every day you wake up and then the brain fog hits and you go, oh, and you go and lay down and you're like, oh, again. You get up the next day, again, and next day, again. And it's like, when will this fucking stop?
Yeah.
It's soul destroying.
Yeah.
But you have to, your mind is what you put the thoughts into. Your feelings comes from your thoughts. And our brains are wired to accept any kind of thought unless you try and retrain the brain and use things like affirmations. Like, don't say I am, say I am learning to.
Yeah.
Because the brain will say to you, I don't believe that, and ignore that, because it's not a request, it's a demand. But if you say to yourself, I am learning too, as part of your affirmations, it's saying to your brain, oh, look, we're having a switch up here. This is something that we're going to try and learn. But this is stuff that takes time. Not a lot of people are good with meditation and stuff. You just need patience. And I'm not saying sit there like a hippie with your legs crossed. Lay in your bed, put your headphones in, go and get a playlist off of YouTube. Some people like the law of attraction. Some people like different sets of affirmations. You can have affirmations about positivity. You can have affirmations about quality of life. There's so many things. Being kind to yourself, whatever it takes for you, design your own picture and work back from there.
And I think what you've said there is really do something.
Yeah.
Like not just sit there and do and wait for it. Because I went through the period of time where I was waiting for a doctor to solve my problem, which I still am to an extent, because I don't know, I haven't got that expertise.
Let me let you into a secret. No one's coming to save you.
Yeah.
This is you've got to do this. They may be able to put it into a square box and find the symptoms and everything else.
Yeah.
But you've got to drive this. Yeah. No one knows you better than you. You can't be the Google doctor, but you need to work within the confines of your lack of knowledge. I have very little knowledge. I'm not anything about medical. All this stuff is I've had to learn, test, because I have one macro goal. This shit has got to stop.
Yeah. So true. And it's funny you say like meditation. I've tried like 3 years solid, and it just didn't really work for me. But you mentioned Wim Hof earlier. I did Wim Hof, and it blew my mind. Like
cold showers.
Amazing. Cold showers, the breathing. It sends you to it sends you to places like mentally that you've never been before. So I know that works for me, and I know if I do it, it's going to help me. But it's getting myself to do it every day. And yeah, I think just doing stuff, taking action.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Do you get to the day when you're tired?
Yeah, I mean,
what do you do when you're tired?
I mean, I was before COVID. I recently had COVID. I was drinking a lot of coffee, which was not good.
Okay, next time you're tired, be kind to yourself. Go and lay down. 20-minute YouTube playlist, don't matter what it is. Put that in your ears, lay down. Even, like, that's still a form of meditation if you lay there and the words and the guidance that you get goes into your subconscious. It's still working its way in if you go into a Zen-like state. And you don't have to be in a full hypnosis. You can just downgrade into a slight hypnosis. You can stare at the wall for 20 seconds. And that should be enough where you start to, when you stare at a wall and the spot and you start to dial out and you get like eyes go blurry, then you close your eyes, you're still in a form of a hypnotic state. It's a light hypnotic state of self-hypnosis. That's enough to allow the whatever you're giving yourself in terms of the audio, the auditory experience is still going to be a reach to your subconsciousness.
Yeah.
It can only pay dividends. So all you're doing is you're not, if you say, I would never sit there. I don't think I've ever sat down cross-legged and tried to meditate. I'm like, fuck that. It's just too much work. I'd rather lay down, just stick a playlist on. If I fall asleep and then wake up and I go, oh, actually, I feel a lot better now. My brain feels more regulated in terms of like, the busy brain and everything else. You buy yourself a few more hours. You might feel a bit rough. Have your coffee then. Have your shower. Go and have your cold shower.
Yeah.
That'll shock you.
Yeah. No, I did about a month worth of cold showers, and they're amazing. Now, I guess final question really is: there's going to be a lot of people listening here in that kind of darkest hour where you were before, and there could be, if they don't do something, that they could be still there in another 5, 6, 7 years mentally. Like,
Yeah.
What's your advice to someone making, we're talking about comebacks, and I love that word. You are on your way to a comeback based on where you were previously. What would be your advice to someone mentally right now who's in that place, who's looking to make their own comeback? What would be your advice?
I'm going to be very kind to you, but you got this. Just fucking do it. Get up and force yourself, right? No one's going to help you through this more so than yourself. And it's a small muscle every day. Just chip away. It's not about making big gains. It's tiny little gains. There's nothing stopping you. If you're laying in bed with brain fog, there's nothing wrong with you closing your eyes and putting a YouTube playlist on for meditation or affirmations, because you're laying there anyway. You're laying there and you can't do anything. So why not treat yourself to that? And that's the smallest step that you only need to take, just to try it. It may not be a thing, but give it a go. If you're going to lay there and do that anyway, and you can't look at a screen because you've got brain fog and you're fatigued, you should be able to have enough energy to put headphones in and press play. That's your first step.
Yeah.
Do that and then just work yourself up. Be kind to yourself, but work yourself up from there.
Just keep going. I think I've heard you say that before. Just
relentless.
Keep going. Yeah.
Just be relentless. And if you are into stuff, put on a David Goggins video.
Yeah.
He's fucking brutal, right? But it'll get you going. But you might be into Black Sabbath, or you might into gangster rap or something. Get the adrenaline going. Music's another thing as well, because you want to release endorphins, raise your serotonin levels, things like that. If you sing, because they will release positive hormones in your body.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not going to get all technical because I don't know enough about it, but I know, like, I've got a little DJ set up over there, and I like to have a little mix from time to time. I was originally in the music industry. I can get lost in music. And don't forget as well, and I'm learning more about this, it's the mind state that you're in, switching states, learning how you can switch states, right? If you force yourself to laugh, smile, that's sending signals. Oh, okay, I'm smiling there. There you go.
Yeah.
I should be a bit more happy. It won't work instantly, but it doesn't matter what you try. It doesn't matter what people say. If it's quackery, whatever, fuck it, just do it. What have you got to lose? You've got nothing to lose and everything to gain.
Yeah. It's almost like what I feel from you is that, and I try to do it as well, it's almost like you've got a competitive mindset with what you've got going on.
I have a choice. I'm 44. The clock's ticking. You don't get time back.
Yeah.
And I've only got possibly so many thousand days left on the planet. Yeah. I want to live my life. I want to live the fullest. No amount of money, anything, wealth, nothing matters. Health is your number one thing, because off the back of health, you build everything else.
Yeah. Well, look, I think that's an amazing note to kind of end things on. And thank you so much for coming on. If there's anything that, some of the stuff you've mentioned today, if people wanted to like reach out to you, would that be okay?
Of course it is.
Just on Facebook, right? Just Danny McMillan.
Yep. Or go to danny@sellersessions.com and drop me an email.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on today, mate. And enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Thanks.